Mr. Rangwala, the architect for the temple, we were seeing this first meeting as getting the information to you, getting some general thoughts, and then following up with a second meeting, hopefully completing all of the questions and moving toward a recommendation and action.
That's good, because that is exactly what I was going to request because of that. So the last question before I turn it over to everyone else is the height of the tower element. I hope it's called a tower. Disrespect if it's not. Is that approved in the ordinance?
In the non-urban resident district, the maximum height of any structure or component of a building is 60 feet. And so Mr. Rangwala, the architect, has done his research, and as you can see, it's at 59 feet.
Okay, everybody else.
Overall, I mean, I think one thing that concerns me is that the temple side of the building has some elaborate detailing. And then we go next door to the assembly hall, and it's just pretty bland. I think that adding the standing seam eyebrows on that building, it just doesn't fit with the temple development. Is there a way that, I understand you're probably doing it for cost savings, but I would prefer that similar detailing would happen on the adjacent hall.
May I respond?
Certainly.
Hello.
Please, Mr. Rangwala, you can respond to Mr. Crow's.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, my name is Salim Rangwala with Rangwala Architects. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So to your question about the ornate part of it was actually a deliberate way of the important part in this complex, if you may, is the temple. And that has to stand out as a unique piece of architecture. So as not to compete with the rest of the building. The rest of the building is not a prayer hall. So it's a very unique structure. And that's why if you look at it, the heights are different for a temple. And it's actually the entryway set in a little bit so the temple can stand out on its own. Normally in India, these kind of temples stand alone, and the ancillary facilities are separate from the temple itself. But we live in a climate of, cold climate, and so it's difficult for people to go from the temple to the ancillary facility in winter, and that's why this is all connected together. So it's been a very deliberate actually exercise to enhance the temple and kind of let the other buildings be what they need to be. I hope I've answered your question.
You have. I still don't get the introduction of a standing seam eyebrow. That just seems foreign to your overall selection of materials on this project. I understand you want it for deflection of weather and shading and all that, but it just to me is adverse to the palette that you've started with.
Well, I have done about just so that I've used this kind of vernacular, which is very typical to India. What you see as a standing seam is actually kind of a terracotta, half-round Spanish style look. And I called it standing seam, but it's fluted to kind of mimic architecture that's as a clay tile architecture in India. And that's what the effort there was. I've done about 15 temples like that all over the country. Not to say anything, and people have been very, very responsive to this. And as far as, and again, not to jump around, but the earlier question of detailing and all that, I think that's a very valid question. We, as an architect, like I said, I've done a lot of these temples, and I've made sure that all these kind of detailed ornaments, they are very, very well made. They weather very well, but they are meant for North America, and it's not that, and the colors are all integral to the material, so there is no issue of uneven fading. But I'll be happy to submit a sample of those. It's kind of difficult because it's such a big, what I call it, we call it steeple. I mean, I don't call it a tower, we call it a steeple, or actually we call it a shikhar, which is kind of a synonym for steeple. So those and the dome itself is very well crafted. And I'll be happy to share pictures of some of them that have been built around the country, maybe close-ups, if that will suffice. As far as three-dimensional, I believe that's what you're looking for. We'll get working on that and get you a three-dimensional look so you can better appreciate. It's kind of difficult to see the what you're going to see in an elevation. We are all architects, so you understand that. So because this tower is set back, it's right in the middle of the building, so you won't see it the way you see it now, of course. So yeah, we'll be happy to provide a three-dimensional rendering of the complex.
3D rendering and some details on the materials, just some close-ups of the ornate elements and the windows, what they're really,
Absolutely.
that would be very.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
will do that, yeah. Just so that, again, I put it purposely here, just so, and then you can go to my website and see it. This is another temple it's been built, and it's built exactly like this in Shawnee, Kansas.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's one in St. Louis. Well, it's not as ornate, so probably that's not a good example, but I'll be happy to share some pictures of this project for you.
That would be great.
And it's been built about it's been 6-7 years. So I can get you the latest pictures so that you can appreciate how it's weathered. And the people I work for here for these, they're very, very concerned and particular about the material they use. And so I don't think that will be an issue, but I will be happy to get you some samples.
Thank you.
And some pictures. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Ritter has his hand raised.
Okay. I'm sorry, my question relates to where does that exactly fall in the front to back of the building? If it's at the back of the building, I'm a little concerned that we've reduced the setback to the street of a 60-foot tower to 25 feet.
No, it's actually, if you look at my elevation, if you look at the side elevation, I hope it should be part of the package that will show you that the tower, did you get the side elevation?
Okay, so it's more in the middle.
Yeah, it's in the middle. And that's what I was trying to tell you, that once you look at it in perspective, it's not going to be as as you see in elevation, because a lot of it will be because of the angle.
A lot of it would be hidden behind the dome.
Exactly, and the parapet and all that.
Mr. Chair, it looks as Mr. Hoffman has a question.
Yeah, first off, Joe, the Old Etherton on the one plan, is that the what was that? Smith School Road, is that the same thing?
No, it's not, sir. Smith School is a little further to the north and to the west. This is just a little small segment that connects between Route BA and Route 109. It's pretty much a single lane road for all intents and purposes.
Okay. All right. As far as the building goes, I kind of agree with George that the little red roofs on here they serve no purpose. They're over basically grassed areas, and they just sort of detract. Your eye sort of goes to that rather than to the temple part of it. I'd like to see those just go away. The other thing is there is a rather large kitchen shown. What's the height of the parapet? Is it going to hide any rooftop equipment? And the same on the
all the roof. Mr. Ritter, if you look at the lay of the land, the entry elevation of the building itself is about it's at the highest of the site and from the road south to it. So the road coming up from 109 from south coming up, it's at a much lower elevation. So that helps us. Plus the parapet itself and the location of the all the rooftop units will be put in so that you won't see anything from any of the sidelines, from any of the roads.
Well, in the prayer hall, the tower, it sort of reminded me of Angkor Wat, but that's in Cambodia and it's Buddhist.
Yes, that's a good observation. I've been there, and it's a typical South Indian architecture. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but I was wondering if there's any rooftop units on the prayer hall. Are they going to stick up above the parapet? And in which case it's going to detract from that very ornate tower.
No, and that is absolutely right. We wouldn't do anything like that. All the rooftop units would be so positioned. I obviously don't have it all here, but and I've done this in the past. You're right. We would not do anything like that to detract from the shikhar or the steeple.
Yeah,
or the dome.
The prayer hall and the social hall are going to take some serious HVAC systems.
Yeah, and we'll be located.
Yeah, I don't see anything on the plan that says mechanical rooms. I'm assuming they're all rooftop units.
They are rooftop
I'd like
units.
to see where these things are, how big or how high the parapet is, and just some
Since
sight lines on that.
Since we don't have any of the MEPs done yet, and what I can guarantee is that a bunch of sight lines, once I have all that information, and give my assurance that none of those will be seen.
How high is it?
And then that will be assurance will be coupled with sight lines.
How high are the parapets around this?
Well, they vary all around. Again, even if they're 3 feet high, they're sufficient because all the rooftop units will be put in the middle of the building. I can see it happening right at the center of the building, of the lobby area. Most of the rooftop units and the center of the building of the social hall, and you will not see them. I don't foresee any of the rooftop units to be more than 7 feet. That's my experience on it.
I think we really need to see that.
And you will. Believe me, I would like to see it myself. I would not like to do anything like that. And
Never
I,
trust the engineers. They'll screw your
no,
building up so
no.
fast.
I've done enough of this, sir. That and if you get to this, and I'll be happy to share that sometime. The project itself, this particular project that I have behind me is built about 5 years ago. It had some serious rooftop. It's comparable to what we are doing here. And you can't see anything. I've got pictures of it. I've got aerial view, and you'll see the location, how strategically we placed it. So
Okay.
from the road, we don't see it. Obviously, we don't want to shoot ourselves on the foot on this.
Right.
That's the last thing I'd do.
Well, Dave, I think we need some additional information before we can go any further on this.
Absolutely. And that is how we started out. So thank you for Joe for clarifying that. So maybe you could throw some of the rooftop equipment on the rendering if you're doing that, and just guess at the size based on your experience.
The rendering will not obviously, we can show, and I'll have to take a stab at it because none of the MEP drawings are done. But yeah, I definitely can next time show you the location of the rooftop units, possibly get an idea of the height of the rooftop units, and get you some sight lines from
Great.
both 109 and Etherton Road, because I will be drawing those. I will be working on those just so that we make sure that none of those suckers show up.
So we will add that to the list of the things that I mentioned earlier that we just want the details on.
Sure.
And then we also have a question from Ms. McCutcheon. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I was muted. Kathy helps me out. Mr. Crow has his hand up, and then following that, we have a written question from Ms. McCutcheon.
Well, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have a technical comment. And Mr. Rangwala, just to let you know, my current claim to expertise as a building enclosure consultant. And I currently have 3 cases in litigation on stucco. So just to caution you, I think the substrate works. You're showing a concrete substrate, and that is greatly beneficial to stucco application in lieu of what we typically are seeing in the Midwest, putting that over gypsum board or some other substrate. So I just caution you with that develop those systems correctly, because we do deal with freeze and thaw, and the product has its issues.
So it's, if I may, I can show you the, let me, excuse me a second. So the product itself, the walls will be built of this ICF, and I'm sure some of you are very
I
familiar with
understand.
it.
But the issue is the attachment of the expanded mesh for the stucco and the water barrier or the cleavage membrane that goes in between those two elements to make the system drain correctly.
That is in our specification, a drainage system behind it.
Okay.
The building that you see behind me is exactly the same material, although the backup, the walls are not. This is solid concrete building with
Understood.
insulation on either side. And
That's why I commented that you're starting off on the right course.
yes, and I appreciate
Solid
that.
concrete wall helps a great deal.
Definitely. Mm.
And Mr. Chair, if I could read Ms. McCutcheon's comment. She asked the question, are both of the roof elements necessary?
The sloped roof. I'm sorry, which What are you talking about?
Let me
And
pull up
Mr.
the-
Ringwala, if I may. I believe the question from Councilmember McCutcheon is not necessarily the tower structure itself, but the ornamentation. And again, at the top of the tower structure, are those essential to the place
It
of
has some
worship?
religious significance. Basically, they are almost like a small, how should I say? It's not a flag as such, but it's more like it's like no different than an angel at the top of a steeple, if I may. It's kind of that kind of a significance it has. It's not that it's, to me, I'll have to see if you feel strongly about it. We can discuss about it and see. But to me, in the overall scheme of things, that will not be that significant as far as the look is concerned. But that's part of the religious symbolism of that particular shikhar.
I would rather not comment on the religious portions of the building or try to remove them.
And Mr. Chair, I was going to liken it to, with all due respect to the Hindu religion, to the Christian religion, that would be the cross.
Mhm.
Yeah. And for the Mormon temple, and I've designed that too, for the angel at the top.
Certainly. Thank you for answering the question.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I do have one question that, if with your permission, I could ask.
Go ahead.
Are all the temples for the Hindu religion the same color, in this case, what I would describe as pink, Mr. Rangwala?
This particular, yes, and again, it's part of it's either white, off-white, or pink. And
Thank you.
most of the temples, but if I may, it's not as pink as, and it's kind of difficult to show it. And as you know, when you start printing it, what you have, it's not. So I'll try and probably show you these two. And I got this, if it is, so it's kind of, I don't know whether this is also truly representative, because you lose something in but the color at the top is the base color, and the ornamentation is going to be with this color.
Thank you.
And then all the glass, if I may complete, all the glass that you see will be bronze, and the frames will be bronze too.
If you would just include those paint numbers and names and your.
It is on the drawings, it is included in the drawings. If you look at it, the names and numbers have been given there. So just so to reiterate, the field color is the SW6603 oleander, and the accent color is SW6611 jovial. I don't know where they get the names. It's jovial.
That's somebody's job.
I know, and they make a lot of money doing that.
Those are all Sherwin-Williams paint colors, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Request?
Mr. Chair, if there are no other questions or comments, I think Mr. Newberry and I would like to summarize the items you'd like to see.
Thank you.
And we'll send a letter to Mr. Rangwala identifying them if we get this correct. Relative to the materials, you'd like to see samples along with any color samples that are available, as just was represented by Mr. Rangwala. We want a 3D rendering of the temple itself, highlighting the character of the facility. I wasn't sure if you wanted some sight lines or sightline drawings to determine the location of the HVAC units and their visibility or non-visibility.
I think that's important, and also show how that, the temple dome's gonna be seen from different
Right.
angles on the site.
All right. And then,
And we, sorry, and we'll be happy to provide that, both the sidelines for the steeple part of it and the dome part of it, and also obviously the HVAC part. Sorry,
Thank you.
go ahead.
and then finally, given the character of the temple, more detail on some of the treatments associated with the windows in the building itself.
Sure.
Mr. Newberry, did I miss anything? Probably did, but
Just details, anything that you have that you can provide, we'd like to see.
We'll get you as much as we can.
Perfect.
and Mr. Chair, I think also Mr. Rangwala offered to provide some photographs of other temples of a similar nature so that you could see it in, I guess,
Yeah.
real time, so
That
to
would be
speak.
very helpful.
And I'll also show the HVAC location, and you can appreciate what we try
Thank
to do to hide them.
Thank you.
Again,
there's-
Mr. Chair, did we miss anything? I just, pardon my interruption, but I want to make sure we've got everything.
I think globally you covered when you said material designation. I'm interested to see the product of these prefabricated steeples and domes, what's that's made out of. So maybe a data sheet on that, or would be helpful to know what that, whether it's fiberglass reinforced concrete or fiberglass reinforced gypsum. It's just good to know what base product that is.
I will get you that. I think that's fair enough. We'll get you because they're made of either fiberglass and fiberglass. Is it a couple, 3 products that are made? Some are heavier, some are lighter. It's all, of course, framed inside with steel.
Well, the concern I have with that is how the units are joined together, because that offers a place for water infiltration. Obviously, you're going to ship these out in pieces.
And there are, again, I go back to, we've done this before and it's been there for a while. And the good thing is, it's a good thing or bad, I don't know. And it's never happened, but if there is a leakage, it's all going up to the roof, because this all basically, it's not going in any habitable space.
That's a valid comment. So that's a good way of doing it.
So it's all draining out from inside. If it happens, because, but we've found that there has been no leakages.
Standing seam roof also that you're calling out?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Hensick's question is a good question. Do you want to see an alternative set of drawings that eliminates the standing seam steel roof on the Fellowship Hall area?
I would agree to that. Mr. Hoffman's comment that I think that building would be much more desirable if those were stripped off and just leave it. I understand Mr. Rangwala's concept of reducing the articulation on that building, but my aesthetic tells me that taking those eyebrows off would be more pleasing.
And I assume a cost savings.
Is that part of the religious symbolism in any way?
So there is an issue of, so the middle part is more, that has no religious connotation, the issue. But what it does have, what we call that ancillary facility, we call it as Haveli. And I don't know the best way to translate that is Haveli is for people to gather. In the architecture for that kind of Haveli is very traditional, where you have these sloped roof. And so that part of the building is Haveli. The middle part is just a connection, if you may. So for that has no other significance other than making sure that people understand that that's the entry. So we have a lot of glass shown there. But that part, I would request you, and maybe when we do a rendering, perhaps then we can discuss this a little bit more. And I'll send you some pictures. In fact, I might have another one. And to just illustrate that, it's the same issue here. If you see, I don't know whether you can see it very clearly, but that is a temple part. And then if you turn around the back, that's a vernacular of the rest of the temple. And let me show you another example, perhaps that'll elucidate what I'm trying to say. So that was the temple in Shawnee. That is a temple in Canton. So it's very similar to what we are trying to achieve here. So this would be the temple per se, the main building. Of course, it has 3 towers. We're not doing that. That is a central part, which is kind of, it's a connection, and we don't want to make it look more than what it is. And this is what we would call a Haveli. And you can see the vernacular here. And that's what we're trying to do. It goes it's part of the temple complex, if you may. So you can see this. And
on our sheets, at least on my packet, it really stands out because it's bold, bold, bold red. And those that you just showed us doesn't stand out so much. So if that's
yep.
Show it on the rendering, and if you have other ideas, show them, because I think it does stand out. It's the first thing on this rendering that really draws your eye away from the steeple.
And part of the reason, and again, if I may, that roof is not that big in terms of depth. And what will happen is when you see from below, you're not even going to see that height of the roof, what you see right now. Right now is probably the height of that canopy. I would rather call it canopy than anything else. Is just 3 to 4 feet. But when you're looking from down below, you not even see that. So what I'm trying to get at is that you're not going to see all that terracotta. It's not even red. Again, I apologize. It's just that it's kind of difficult to recreate the colors, and but it's more like a dull, smooth terracotta because that is the material that is used in India, clay tiles. And it's not the red, vivid red tiles. It's more muted than that. So that is what, and I've done it in Chicago. I've done it in Detroit, in Cleveland, and I can get you pictures of that so that you can appreciate what we are trying to do.
So you're saying it's more of a rust color?
Was if you could see that material, because you mentioned it was almost like a Spanish, and I have like a clay tile roof on there rather than
Exactly.
standing.
Yeah.
We could
And
see more of that. It should be a more terracotta color than this red.
It is, and it's called out terracotta. And I appreciate what you're saying. And I apologize again. It's very difficult to recreate it when you print it from what you what you actually have. And so, but if you know what, it's almost like brick-like color, the typical brick-like terracotta color. That's what we're trying.
Yeah, if we could see a sample of that, that would be nice.
We'll try and get you a sample of that, definitely. But I would urge you to consider keeping it there, because it's again a part of the vernacular of the whole complex. And I don't want the rest of the building to look totally bland, because it'll look like boxes, two big boxes. And I was trying to avoid that and to get some sort of Indian vernacular in this complex. So
You're the architect, so present the way you would like it to be reviewed.
okay.
Just think about it. If there's another way to do something, because the
Sure.
board members would like to see something if that's in your vision. So I don't think there's any need to review anything further. We don't need a motion or a vote tonight, because you're going to be coming back on your own schedules. So what do we do,
Okay.
Trick?
Dave, I got a quick question.
Mhm.
The front canopy with stucco finish, is there a reason that isn't done the same as the terracotta standing metal roof?
Yeah, so like I had indicated earlier, that part is just merely a connection. And if you notice, yeah, exactly. We would just want to make it disappear, so that it's not a very, not part of the whole scheme of things. And
Okay,
and it would be kind of neat to actually make it a little more contemporary. So it's just seen as a kind of thing, and then you appreciate the Haveli and the temple. The Haveli being the place where people like gather, and the temple, the house of worship, and so it's just a little connection to those two, and that's deliberately done by me, and I've done it in the past, and it's been successful.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and we will I'll review your next submittal and probably have a few more questions at that time when we can understand it better.
Definitely. As soon as I get from Mr. Vodnik, we'll get going on the stuff that you're looking for. And I don't know when next we'll meet, but
Up to you.
I guess next month. We'll try and get all that put together by next month.
Totally up to you.
Thank
Okay.
you, and namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, again, we'll get information relative to tonight's meeting to Mr. Ringwala so that he has kind of a checklist to work from. And when we send it to the architect, we'll also send it to all of you to make sure we've captured what's necessary.
Thanks,
So
Joe.
thank you all.
So that brings the meeting to an end. Are there any public comments? I forgot that part.
no public.
There could be.
Mr. Chair, the Zoom does allow for the public to provide comment. And looking at the attendees, we do not have any members of the public in attendance tonight.
Okay. Well, then let's close the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Meeting's over.
Thank you all again, and stay safe and healthy out there.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, thanks.